Welcome back, occultists, to another video. These stories may be triggering or graphic for some due to the subject matter. If you are new to the channel, make sure to like and subscribe for more content. Comment below your creepiest moments this week. Let's begin. Life, for me, had always been a solitary journey. I was the quiet man, unnoticed, fading into the background of others' more vibrant stories. But everything changed the day I met her, Clara. It was a chance encounter at the grocery store, one that would forever alter the course of my life. I first saw her in the produce section, her elegance making her stand out amidst the mundane task of selecting fruits and vegetables. She was like a character from a classic novel, poised and graceful. I was drawn to her, an inexplicable pull that led me to initiate a conversation. To my surprise, she was receptive, her laughter a melody that stirred something long dormant in my heart. Over the following weeks, we grew closer. Clara was everything I had ever dreamed of, intelligent, charming, with a wit that kept me on my toes. For the first time in my life, I felt seen, understood. I fell for her, hard and fast, my world orbiting around her. But as our relationship progressed, subtle changes began to surface. Clara's charm started to take on a manipulative edge, her affection interspersed with moments of cold indifference. I brushed it off as mood swings, a product of stress from her job, or so she claimed. Then came the night that revealed her true nature. Clara had invited me over for dinner, a cozy evening at her place. I arrived with a bouquet of her favorite flowers, anticipation fluttering in my chest. But as I stepped into her apartment, a feeling of unease crept over me. The atmosphere felt charged, heavy with an unspoken tension. Dinner was an elaborate affair, Clara playing the perfect hostess. But as the night progressed, her behavior became erratic, her conversation topics veering into dark territories. She spoke of her fascination with the human psyche, particularly the aspects of control and manipulation. Her eyes gleamed with a disturbing intensity as she described her theories and experiments. I tried to steer the conversation to lighter topics, but she was relentless. Then she made a shocking confession: she enjoyed manipulating people, bending them to her will. It was a game to her, one she claimed to be exceptionally good at. Alarm bells rang in my head, but I was too caught up in the web she had woven around me. I excused her confession as a strange sense of humor, a quirk that made her unique. The evening ended with her playing a strange game, a psychological experiment, she said. It involved me being blindfolded, testing my trust in her. Reluctantly, I agreed, my heart racing with a mix of fear and excitement. Blindfolded, I waited for her next instructions, but none came. Instead, I heard her moving around the apartment, the clink of metal, the sound of doors opening and closing. A sense of dread settled over me, the darkness behind the blindfold seeming to press against my eyes. When she finally removed the blindfold, the sight that greeted me was like something out of a nightmare. The room was transformed, photos and newspaper clippings of missing people plastered on the walls, their eyes crossed out. In the center of the room was a chair with restraints attached. Clara stood in front of me, her expression one of twisted satisfaction. She explained, in a chillingly calm voice, that this was her true self, a sociopath, as she put it. She thrived on control, on the fear she elicited from others. Panic surged through me. I realized I was in the presence of a monster, a predator who had lured me into her den. I made a move to leave, but she was quicker. She lunged at me, a syringe in her hand. I tried to fight her off, but she managed to inject me with whatever was in the syringe. My body grew weak, my movements sluggish. Clara taunted me, her voice a twisted lullaby as my consciousness faded. I woke up tied to the chair, my body heavy and unresponsive. Clara was there, watching me with cold, emotionless eyes. She spoke of her plans for me, how I was going to be her masterpiece, a testament to her control. I struggled against the restraints, desperation lending me strength. Clara seemed amused by my attempts, her laughter a sound that echoed in the hollow space of my mind. But in a stroke of luck, or perhaps fate, the door to the apartment burst open. The police stormed in, guns drawn, alerted by a neighbor who had heard the commotion. Clara was arrested, her reign of terror coming to an abrupt end. the aftermath was a blur. The police explained that Clara was suspected in several disappearances, her charming facade a mask for her true, sinister nature. I was questioned, my story a puzzle piece in the larger, more horrifying picture they were piecing together. I returned to my solitary life, but the shadows of that encounter lingered. I was haunted by memories of Clara, of the monster who had hidden behind the mask of a perfect woman. Nights were the hardest, the darkness a canvas for my fears. I jumped at every sound, every shadow a reminder of the terror I had experienced. The experience changed me, leaving a mark that no amount of time could erase. I withdrew from the world, my trust in others shattered. Clara, the woman I had fallen for, was a fiction, a character in a twisted play of her own making. I often wonder about the other victims, the ones who didn't get a chance to escape. I was one of the lucky ones, a survivor of a nightmare that was all too real. But the question that haunts me the most is how many more Claras are out there, hiding behind a facade of normalcy, waiting for their next victim. The world is a stage, and sometimes the actors are not who they appear to be. My day-to-day had settled into a comfortable routine since I left David. I had moved on, built a new life with a loving husband, Ethan, and our 2 beautiful children. Our home was a sanctuary, filled with laughter and love. That all changed the night I first noticed the tent. It was a chilly autumn evening, and I was closing the curtains when I saw it. Nestled in the woods just beyond our backyard was a small, inconspicuous tent. My heart skipped a beat as an icy finger of fear traced down my spine. I knew, with a sinking feeling, who it was. David. David and I had dated in college, but I soon realized his affection was possessive, his love a suffocating trap. After a harrowing year, I ended things, and he didn't take it well. His obsession had now led him to camp outside my family home. I told Ethan, trying to keep the panic from my voice. He was understandably concerned but thought it was probably just a homeless person or a hunter. But I knew. I could feel David's presence, like a dark cloud looming over our home. Each night, I'd peek through the curtains, and the tent would still be there, a silent sentinel in the dark. I began to notice little things, our mailbox left open, trash cans knocked over, footprints in the morning dew. Ethan installed security lights and cameras, but they did little to ease my growing anxiety. Then the gifts started appearing on our doorstep. At first, they were just small trinkets, things David knew I used to like. But they grew more personal, a photo of us from college, a dress I had left at his place, a note with a single, chilling word, forever. I contacted the police, but they said there was little they could do unless he made a direct threat. So, we lived in this state of constant vigilance, a shadow hanging over our once happy home. The situation escalated one Friday night. We returned from a family dinner to find the back door ajar. My heart raced as we searched the house. Nothing seemed out of place until I reached our bedroom. There, on my pillow, was a single red rose and a note in David's unmistakable handwriting. "I'm always watching," it read. I felt violated, the sanctity of our home breached by his madness. We stayed at a hotel that night, the kids confused and scared. Ethan wanted to confront David, but I was terrified of what he might do. The man I once knew was gone, replaced by this obsessive stalker. The following days were a blur of fear and sleepless nights. I jumped at every sound, every shadow. I was a prisoner in my own home, constantly looking over my shoulder. One evening, as I was putting the kids to bed, I heard a noise downstairs. Ethan was working late, and we were alone. My heart pounded as I crept down the stairs, every creak of the floorboards echoing loudly in the silent house. I reached the living room, and that's when I saw him. David, standing there with a wild look in his eyes. He had gotten in through the unlocked back door, his obsession finally driving him over the edge. He rambled about us being together, about how he couldn't live without me. I tried to reason with him, to calm him down, but it was no use. His love had twisted into something dark and dangerous. I thought about the kids, asleep upstairs, and a fierce protectiveness surged through me. I had to get him out of the house. I told him I'd go with him, just to get him away from my family. He believed me, his face lighting up with a disturbing joy. We walked to the back door, and that's when I made my move. I pushed him with all my strength, slamming the door and locking it. He pounded on the glass, his face contorted in rage. I called the police, my hand shaking so much I could barely dial the number. They arrived quickly, but David had fled into the woods by then. They searched, but he was gone, vanished into the night. The next day, we found his tent, abandoned. Inside were pictures of me, taken from afar, along with other disturbing items that spoke of his delusion. David was never caught. He became a ghost, a haunting presence that lingered in the shadows of our lives. We moved away, started anew in a different town, but the fear never completely left us. I still look over my shoulder, still jump at unexpected sounds. The experience changed me, made me wary of the darkness that can hide within someone. David, the man I once cared for, had become my nightmare, a specter of fear and obsession that still haunts my dreams. Life goes on, but I'm forever vigilant, forever aware that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones who once whispered words of love. I've always prided myself on running a tight ship at my marketing firm in downtown. I'm Richard, the CEO, and for years, I've cultivated a workplace environment based on respect and professionalism. But one incident, dark and unsettling, threatened to unravel everything I stood for. It all began with an employee named Tom. He was talented but impulsive, and unfortunately, his impulses led him down a path that was not only unprofessional but also against company policy. It was a regular Monday morning when our security team brought to my attention a video footage that left no room for ambiguity. Tom was caught on camera engaging in intimate relations in the office after hours. The decision was clear but difficult. I had to let him go. Tom took his termination badly. His outburst during the firing was filled with anger and accusations. "You'll regret this, Richard," he spat out as he was escorted from the building. I hoped it was just the anger speaking. Over the next few weeks, the incident seemed to become a thing of the past, a sour note in the company's history, but nothing more. That was until the day Tom returned. It was late, the sun already dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. Most of my staff had left, and I was in my office reviewing reports. That's when I heard the sound, the faint but unmistakable click of my office door being locked from the outside. A chill ran down my spine as I stood up, moving cautiously towards the door. I tried the handle, but it wouldn't budge. I was trapped. Turning around, I saw him, Tom, standing in the corner of my office, his face twisted in a grotesque mask of anger and resentment. "You ruined my life, Richard," he hissed, his voice barely above a whisper. I tried to reason with him, to calm him down, but he was beyond reason. "You think you can just fire me and move on? I've lost everything because of you." He advanced towards me, a glint of something metallic in his hand. It was a knife, its blade reflecting the dim light of my office. My heart raced, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I had to think fast. "Tom, let's talk about this." "There's no need for violence," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. But he wasn't listening. With a yell, he lunged at me, the knife slashing through the air. I dodged, barely avoiding the blade. We grappled, a desperate struggle for survival. My mind raced, trying to find a way out of this nightmare. In the scuffle, we crashed into my desk, scattering papers and office supplies. I managed to push him off, but he was relentless. He came at me again, the knife a deadly arc in his hand. I grabbed the first thing I could, a heavy paperweight from my desk, and swung it with all my might. It connected with his head, a sickening thud echoing in the room. Tom crumpled to the floor, unconscious. Panting, I rushed to the door, unlocking it and stumbling out into the hallway. My assistant, who had been working late, saw me and immediately called the police. The aftermath was a blur. The police arrived, taking Tom into custody. He was alive, but the impact had done its damage. I gave my statement, my hands shaking, the events replaying in my mind over and over. The next few days, I was haunted by the incident. I couldn't shake the image of Tom, the hatred in his eyes, the feeling of the knife slicing through the air. I had survived, but the ordeal left its mark. I increased security at the office, implemented new safety protocols. But the sense of safety, of normalcy, was gone. I found myself jumping at shadows, every unexpected sound sending a jolt of fear through me. Tom's assault was a stark reminder of the consequences of our actions, of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface. I had made a decision as a boss, but I had not considered the desperation it could drive someone to. The incident changed me, made me more aware of the impact my decisions have on others. I was a respected man, a CEO, but I was also a target, a symbol of authority that could provoke envy and hatred. I still run my firm, but with a newfound understanding of the human psyche. I've learned that behind every professional facade, there's a personal story, a complex web of emotions and experiences. Tom's assault was a wake-up call, a lesson in empathy and caution. In the world of business, it's easy to forget the human element, the fact that each decision can ripple out and affect lives in ways we can't always predict. But sometimes, in the quiet moments, I find myself wondering about Tom, about the path that led him to that moment of madness. The world is a tapestry of stories, and sometimes, the threads can unravel in the most unexpected ways.